Hello, students. Welcome to week 7 uh, course of General Psychology, Introduction to General Psychology, Sci 1010. In this session, we are reading and reviewing Chapter 12 of your book with the title of Social Psychology. Social psychology was at first considered as one of the multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approaches to human being, a combination between sociology and psychology, and it is called social psychology. As you remember, we describe psychology, we define psychology as the fundamental scientific studying of mental processes and behaviors. And I said to you in the first session that if you want to consider any types of psychology, any fields of psychology, you can consider that fields keywords in the definition of psychology. For example, the keyword of development is change. So when we wanted to define and describe developmental psychology, we said developmental psychology is the scientific studying of changes in behaviors and mental processes. Or the keyword of uh, clinical psychology is mental disorders. So we define clinical psychology, the scientific studying of disorders in behaviors and mental processes. The keyword of social psychology is group. So in social psychology, in very, very simple definition, we consider uh, the scientific study of how people's thoughts, feelings, and actions are affected by others. We are talking about our environment, our community, our society, our country, our race, our ethnicity, our nation, and also our globe or our world as the planet Earth. In this chapter, we have 5 major modules. 1, attitudes and social cognition. 2, social influence and groups. 3, prejudice and discrimination. 4, positive and negative social behavior. And 5, stress and coping. In the first module, we will talk about attitudes and social cognition. Our learning outcomes are define persuasion and explain social cognition. Um, persuasion. Persuasion at first is a very applicable approach, a very applicable matter of psychology. We can use it in business, in marketing, in family, in all types of negotiation, in all types of give and take based on the major parts of human interactions, verbal and honestly sometimes nonverbal communication. You can use your nonverbal communication, nonverbal skills in persuasion processes. In Stanford University, there is a very professional chapter, there's a very professional department that they are working so many years ago, from so many years ago, they are working on persuasive technology. Highly recommended, highly recommended. Look at that part of persuasive technology. It is very important to know about it for every human being, specifically for people who wants to have very high level of negotiation processes and negotiation skills. For example, for businessmen or businesswomen, for psychologists, for lawyers, for people that their proficiency, their expertise are based on the negotiation and talking with other in a persuasive way. So at first we should know about attitudes. It is very popular, very usual in success psychology and coaching psychology that there is a good quote which says attitude is everything. So basically and scientifically, what is attitude? It can be a very easy usage, easy used phrase by everybody. Relation. But this is a science, psychology is a science, and we are talking in a course of university. So everything we are talking about, everything we are discussing about, everything we are teaching and learning should be based on the operational definitions of that science. At first, we want to know about the definition of attitudes. Evaluations of particular person, behavior, belief, or concept. So the matter of attitude is the matter of evaluation of a particular person, behavior, belief, or concept. Attitude change depends on factors. When you want to have a good persuasive course with other people, basically you want to change their attitudes. If you are a leader, you want to change your followers. If you are a manager, you want to change your, for example, the attitude, the mindset, the concepts, the behaviors of the employees, of the co-workers, and other subordinates that work with you. If you are a coach, you should at first work on yourself. At first, you should work on yourself to change your attitude about yourself, about your feelings, about your mindset, about your mental syntax, about your thoughts. So attitude change depends on factors. 1, message source. 2, characteristic of the message. And 3, characteristic of target. We will talk about them in the next slides. At first, message source. The characteristic of a person who delivers a persuasive message, known as an attitude communicator, have a major impact on the effectiveness of that message. Moreover, the communicator expertise and trustworthiness are related to impact of a message, except in situations in which the audience believes the communicator has an ulterior motive. So at first, we are talking about the senders, about the attitude communicator. It is very important that who is sending and who is creating, who is sending the message, who is creating the communication with you, who wants to have a persuasive course with you or with other people, who wants to make a persuasion in other people. 2, characteristic of the message. The major part is message. It is not just who delivers a message, but what message is like that affects attitude. Two-sided messages and one-sided messages. In two-sided messages, both the communicator position and the one he or she is arguing against is the matter of arguing, the matter of message. And in one-sided messages, the arguments for the other side can be effectively refuted and the audience is knowledgeable about the topic. So these are the nature of the message, the characteristic of the message. Message can be two-sided message and one-sided message. Two-sided messages are more effective than one-sided message because the sender and the receiver, both of them are engaged with the communication and sending and giving, receiving the message. And the third part for creating change and attitude is talking about the characteristic of the target of communication, of the target of persuasion, of the target of changing attitude. Once a communicator has delivered a message, characteristic of the target of the message may determine whether the message will be accepted or not. For example, intelligent people are more resistant to persuasion than are those who are less intelligent. More intelligent, more resistant to persuasion. Why? Because when you are very intelligent, you have some major features as an intelligent man or intelligent woman, as an intelligent human being. One of them is criticism. You want to know You want to question about everything. You want to criticize everything. Critical thinking is one of the greatest features of intelligent people. Because of that, many intelligent people are not so happy. Why? Because they can have criticism about everything and devaluate the values of everything. Because of that, they think that we are not happy. There is no meaning for these types of activities. Because of these, they think that, yes, we cannot do anything perfectly. We cannot anything without error because many intelligent people are perfectionists. So it is very important that intelligent people are more resistant to persuasion than are those who are less intelligent, and vice versa. If somebody is more resistant to persuasion, one of the guesses you can have is that he or she is a little more intelligent. Routes to persuasion. We have two routes to persuasion, central route and peripheral route. It is something like nervous system. As you know, we have two types of nervous systems. One, central nervous system, including your brain and your spinal cord, and peripheral nervous system, including your nerves out of your brain and spinal cord. Because of that, we can see again here two types of persuasion processing, central root processing and peripheral root processing. In central root processing, message interpretation characterized by a thoughtful consideration of the issues and arguments used to persuade content of the message. In central root processing, we are processing the content of the message. We are processing the central parts of message. We are not talking about the how we are sending the message, how we are delivering the message, how we are receiving the message. We are talking about the central part of message. What is the message about? What is the content of the message? And in peripheral root processing, we are talking about the how message is provided, about the route of the pathway of the message. We are about the channel of message, not about the sender, not about the receiver, not about the content. We are talking about the form of the message. It is something like movies. You know, in movies, in cinema, we have three major parts: content of the movie, form of the movie, and context of the movie. It's like your thinking. We have content of your thought, form of your thought. It is auditory thought, it is visual thought, it is logical thought. It is not about the content, it is about the form of the thought and what context you are thinking in, what context you are using for your thought. It is something like cinema. Now, again, here we have message interpretation characterized by consideration of the source and related general information rather than of the message itself. For example, what is the source of the message, what the pathway we are using for sending the message. It is peripheral. It is not about the main core of the message. Also, you should know that the peripheral root processing sometimes is more important, more effective than the central root processing. Why? Because a good message, an effective message, a useful message in an ineffective route cannot be sent correctly. And we can see some deviant component in that message. You can see here message and target, highly involved, motivated, and attentive, or target is uninvolved or unmotivated or inattentive. Where it is highly involved and motivated and attentive, we can have central root processing and stronger lasting attitude change. We can create strong stronger and lasting attitude change. And when it is peripheral root processing, uninvolved, unmotivated, or inattentive, the sender is not so motivated to send a message, and receiver is not so motivated, so passionate, so interested to receive the message. It can, for example, in presidential elections, social psychologists are the major counselor for advertisement, for creating some false anxiety in the society. Why? Because if you are a protector, you are a supporter, you are a fan of a specific president or political party, we can work with your mind to destroy not your view, your actions, your passion, your motivation, your attention to your favorite political party. If you are not so motivated, you are unmotivated, you are inattentive, you are uninvolved, so the process of election will be so weak. Also, sometimes in political psychology, the political psychologist knows about the political psychological processes underlying the political decision making based on the public voting, based on the public elections, based on the public views. And they can use some ethical and sometimes unethical methods to create their desired outcome in political decisions. So in peripheral root processing, you see that weaker, less persistent attitude change. It is also, you can find it in personal changes, that when you are more motivated, when you are more interested, when you are more involved with your attitude change, with creating change in your life, the change that will be created will be more long lasting, will be more persistent in your life. But if you are not so motivated about the changes you want to create in your life, or you should create in your life, you create by force. It is very forceful for you, with no passion, with no motivation, with no attention, with no concentration. And after that, you see that, yes, it is touch and go, and very, very short time, very, very um, shallow changes in your life, not deep changes. It is one of the first basic concepts in cognitive psychology. We have three parts: cognitive science, cognitive psychology, and cognitive psychotherapy, or so-called cognitive therapy. These are completely different. Also, the major shared meaning and shared tools in all of them is talking and working with cognition. It is cognitive science, and sometimes it is called cognitive neuroscience and cognitive psychology and cognitive psychotherapy and cognitive therapy. Now we are talking about the one of the basic concepts, basic interesting concepts, approved, scientifically approved, evidence-based, approved psychological concepts, so-called cognitive dissonance in cognitive psychology. The conflict that occurs when a person holds two contradictory attitudes or thoughts or cognitions. You know, thoughts, beliefs, rationality, and mindset, decisions, problem solving, all of them are categorized under a major concept, so-called cognition. So major contradictory, two major contradictory between the thoughts. It is cognitive dissonance. You cannot find a flat way, a direct way between your different views, between your different beliefs, between your passion and your mind, and your mind and your rationality, and your rationality and your heart, and your heart again with your logic. For example, people with cognitive dissonance try to reduce their dissonance by one of the following methods. when you are encountering with a cognitive dissonance, it is not so good for you. It can be the source of a high level of stress in your life, especially in your family life, in your occupational life, in your educational life, in your love life. It can be a major source of stress for you. So people usually choose one of these four major waves ways to cope with cognitive dissonance. One, modifying one or both of the cognitions. Two, changing the perceived importance of one cognition, not the real importance, the perceived importance. How important can you consider for the importance of the one of the issues related to cognitive dissonance? Three, adding new cognitions. And four, denying that the two cognitions are related to each other, that um, denial and avoidance and suppression and regression, and sometimes not regression, it is, yes, denial, avoidance, suppression, and repression are the major causes, root causes of all mental disorders, or mental disorders that can have a very high level of dysfunctioning in your life. When you avoid reality, when you don't accept reality, when you suppress the undesirable reality, undesirable wishes, undesirable thought on it, because these are your reality. Your thought is a part of your reality. We have two types of reality: external reality in your environment, and internal reality. You are experiencing reality, internal reality, by your own self, by your feelings, by your minds, through your thoughts, through your emotions, through your mood, through your affect, through your actions, through your planning, problem solving, and other parts of your internal world. And it is a world with the real components. It is not observable, but it can be measurable. Why not? Because of that, we can call psychology as a science. If you cannot observe something and you cannot measure that thing, it is not a matter of science. We can measure, and indirectly, we can observe your feelings by questionnaires, by interview, by observation, by your body language, and other components we can consider in a clinical course of assessment about your, for example, mental health status or mental illness status. So, denial and suppression and repression and avoidance are the major root causes of producing all types of mental problems at first. If it continues for long term, your mental problems will be your mental illnesses. And you can see here, for example, about the smoking, many smokers, heavy smokers, have two contradictory beliefs about smoking. One, I smoke. Two, smoking leads to lung cancer. These are contradictory beliefs. You cannot say, I am killing myself. You cannot accept that you are killing yourself. So it creates a cognitive dissonance in you. And when we talk modifying one or both of the conditions, modifying one or both condition, we say, I really don't smoke too much. I am modifying one of the components of cognitive dissonance. I am modifying myself. I say, yes, smoke will lead to cancer, lung cancer, but I really don't smoke too much. It is modifying. Second part, changing perceived importance of the cognition. I say, the evidence is weak that smoking causes cancer. Perceived importance. I am weakening the severity of perceived importance of smoking. I said there's no enough evidence-based facts about the relationship between the, for example, smoking and lung cancer. And at the third part, adding additional cognition. I exercise so much that it doesn't matter that I smoke. For example, I add some new information to those basic two contradictory beliefs, which created the cognitive dissonance. I add something new to modify and to change the dissonance. I said, yes, I smoke, and I know that smoking will lead to lung cancer, but I have sport exercises every day. Because of that, it is not important that I smoke. I am adding something as a new excuse for solving my dissonance, because dissonance can create a lot of stress in yourself. And final part, denying that cognitions are related. There is no evidence linking the smoking and cancer. It is something that changing perceived importance, the evaluation of the dissonance. So you see that if you have two contrary cognitions, I smoke, smoke can lead to cancer. And also in the slide, you can see the major method we can use to cope with the cognitive dissonance. Consider for a moment the enormous amount of information about other people to which we are exposed. How can we decide what is important and what is not, and make judgment about the characteristic of others? Don't forget, the major keyword of social psychology is others. The other title we want to talk about is social cognition. We have individual cognition and social cognition. Social cognition, the cognitive processes by which people understand and make sense of others and themselves. The cognitive processes to creating sense, to creating meaning about ourselves and others. Why it is called social cognitions? Because it is seriously under the control of your interactions with your society, with your environment. Some part it is about your childhood and adolescence, when you are a child or a teenager, and the major part of your society in childhood is your parents, and in adolescence is your peer group. Your friends are more important than your parents in adolescence period of time, and because you are making yourself, you are preparing yourself to enter the society as an adult. If you pass the adolescence time and you don't have enough good social skills to enter the society, you will not be a successful, a happy adult. As you see, many people are living with their parents at the age of 50, 60, 40. It is not important to live with parents or not living with parents. It's important. We are talking about dependency. Sometimes, because of socioeconomic problems, you are living with your parents, but you have a independent personality. So your job is good, you're making money, and your attitude, your social interactions. But for example, as a living location, as a living part of your life, you live with your parents. But in many times, it is not true. For example, in the movie Joker, you see the major part of Joker was about living with his mother. And it was not about the mother to be with mother or not to be with mother. It is about the dependency, creating the meaning of life only in one object. For example, your mother, your father, your boyfriend, you're only concentrating on one object. It is not the kind of love and liking. We will talk about liking and love in the next PowerPoints. We are talking about dependency. Because of that, it is called social cognition. That part of your cognition, that part of your belief system, that part of your thoughts, that part of your mindset, which is created because of interaction with your environment. It is called social cognitions. One of the basic cognitions, which is created in the first years of childhood and can have a very harmful effect in your life. Some beliefs about life. It can create some prediction about the future. about the procedures for solving the problems, but cannot be so healthy. It is schema. Schema sets up cognitions about people and social experiences. It is so important that we have a part of so-called schema therapy, a part of therapy for creating some evaluation about our schemas and other parts of our life. It is called schema therapy by Jeffrey Young, and it is about the relatively newer approaches to psychotherapy, working our schemas, working on our basic cognitions about ourselves, about the world, about the environment. And other parts of social cognition is impression formation, how we organize information about another person to form an overall impression of that person. We are talking about the central traits here in impression formation. We are talking about the central traits of that person and ourselves, the major traits considered in forming impressions of others. For example, you know, a very, very enjoyable, powerful, effective, and also money making part of psychology. It is the science of self, because we can use it in different parts of psychology, in organizations, in interpersonal relationships, and other parts. The central traits we can find in science of self. For example, dominant personality, dominant characters, or influencing characters, or supporting characters, or, for example, cooperative characters, extroverted characters, introverted characters, pampered lifestyle or pampered personality. We have different words to use for categorizing people in different clusters, in different groups of characters of personality as the central traits. In impression formation, we use central traits, the major traits considered in forming impressions of others. You see, even when schemas are not entirely accurate, they serve an important function. They allow us to develop expectation about how others will behave. Habits, general knowledge, categorization, conceptualization, and other things like these concepts, like these tools that your brain use for prediction of the world. And after that, for perceiving, have a perceived image about the world, about yourself, about your environment, about your significant others, about the countries, nations, races, ethnicities, and other categorization of human being and also non-human world, about the nature, about the materials and other things, about God, religion, other galaxies, other planets, and other things. So prediction and prevention are the major important parts, major important functions of science. All types of science want to have a perception about the universe, also about us. And after perception, they want to have a prediction about the next events, and prevention in three levels of primary prevention, secondary prevention, and third prevention. Attribution theory talks about explain how we decide on the basis of samples of an individual's behavior what the specific cause of that person's behaviors are. Please note that talking about attribution is a matter of talking about causes. We are not about talking about correlation. We are talking about causes, about the roots, cause and effect relationship. So we have two types of causes: situational causes and dispositional causes. Situational causes, perceived causes of behavior that are based on environmental factors. Pay attention. When you are talking about the attribution, you are talking about the roots, about the causes, but not always about the natural causes. Because knowing the nature, finding the natural laws, also it is the function of science, I know. But it is about the perception of that scientist, because it is relatively, at least from the quantum psychology and quantum physics and quantum mechanics point of view, we are talking about relativity and all things in the world. For example, there are two good books in this area. One, Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, and two, Holotropic Mind by Stanislav Grof from the CIIS, California Institute of Integral Sciences. Stanislav Grof and also Michael Talbot. Holographic Universe. It is not the new books, about, I think, 3 or 4 decades ago. But I have read the translation in my native language, Farsi language, about 20 years ago, the translation. But the chapters, but the matters are still very new. Many people, many scientists are working on the concept about the holographic universe and the holotropic mind by Stanislav Grof, a psychiatrist in CIIS, and also Michael Talbot. They say that, sorry, there is no the final fact, there is no the final truth. It is only a common perception of reality. And also in other books, other philosophical, and in New Generation, you can find them in physical and in physics and mathematics as the science. We can find the major concepts of these parts, that everything is relative to your perception and everything is a perceived thing. Perceived thing. Because of that, honestly, as the psychologist, as the clinical psychologist, as the counselors, as the psychiatrist, we categorize people in different groups of mental disorders. We labelize people, for example, as MDD, major depressive disorders, or BMD, bipolar mood disorders, or sexual disorders, with PDs, personality disorders, with substance abuse disorder. We categorize people in different groups, in different categories for two major causes. First, we want to talk with each other as the professionals. It is not for general population. When I say somebody has MDD, major depressive disorder, it has a very professional meaning for me. Very, very professional. I am talking about the symptoms. I am talking about the duration of the symptoms. I am talking about the severity of symptoms. I am talking about the dysfunctions of the symptoms. I am talking about the distress of the symptoms. I am talking about the major depressive disorders, MDD. But when you are talking about depressed mood with your friends, and so you seem a little depressed today. It is not a professional word. At first, we categorize people in different categorizations because of professional talking with other experts. Secondly, because of insurance. We want to say to insurance companies that you should pay for the therapy for this man or this lady because he or she has MDD. And the third part is about research. When we want to research about, for example, different aspects of human being, we should know what aspects we are researching on. Because of that, we should know some specific names, specific titles that are not so fixed. Between 5 to 10 years, DSM, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, DSM, between 5 to 10 years, it is revised. some previous, some former mental disorders are deleted, some new mental disorders are added. For example, until 1986, homosexuality was in the categorization of sexual disorders. After that, it is deleted. Now homosexuality is not a mental disorder. But after 2013, internet addiction added to mental disorders. We have a categorization for internet addiction under the categorization, I think, obsessive mental disorders. It is a very dynamic categorization, but only for experts, only for professionals, not for ordinary people. I said all of this because I have an alarm for you that everything is related to your perception. Everything is perceived reality. And I don't want to talk more about it because it is not a matter of your course. But if you are so interested in this field, you can see the quantum physics, quantum psychology also, quantum aspects of life, which are very, very, very scientific. So in this approach, we are talking about attribution, about your perceived causes of behaviors, your perceived causes of thoughts, perceived causes of feelings and emotions in yourself and in other people. Highly recommended to have a good look at the Jordan Peterson books about the psychological aspects of business. So we have two types of causes: situational causes and dispositional causes. Situational causes are perceived causes of behavior that are based on environmental factors. We are talking about situation. And dispositional causes are perceived causes of behavior that are based on internal traits or personality factors. It is about your basic parts of your character. Dispositional, not positional, not situational. And the halo effect says an initial understanding that a person has positive trait is used to infer other uniformly positive characteristic. It is halo effect. It says an initial understanding that a person has positive trait is used to infer other uniformly positive characteristic. It is halo effect. And assumed similarity bias says the tendency to think of people as being similar to oneself, even when meeting them for the first time. You see attribution biases. You see that? Yes, she or he is like me, similar to me. It is assumed similarity bias. It's not real similarity. You have assumed that, yes, there are many similarities here between me and, for example, him or her. And sometimes love at the first glance is created in such a position. And self-serving bias, another bias, tendency to attribute personal success to personal factors, skill, ability, or effort, and to attribute failure to factors outside oneself. If I am a winner, it's because of my skills, because of my competences. If I am a loser, because of my unlucky environment, because of outside of me. It is self-serving bias. All the good things in my life is because of me, and all the undesired things or bad things in my life, bad events, bad situation, bad circumstances in my life is because of some people or some condition outside and out of my control in my environment. And fundamental attribution error, one of the first errors in attribution, is a tendency to over attribute other behavior to dispositional causes and the corresponding minimization of the importance of situational causes prevalent in Western cultures. For example, there's a very popular example about the fundamental attribution error that says in an airport, you see someone is begging money from other people, and one of people in their population in an airport give, for example, $20 to that beggar. What is the cause? What causes you are attributing for this action, giving money to a beggar? Many Western cultures says that because he is a generous man or woman, is a good man or woman that want to help other people. And the Eastern culture says no, because he or she knows that he is in the airport and because of environmental attention seeking or some uh, conformity with other people, he or she wants to give money to other people. Because of that, it is fundamental attribution error. It is the error about the attribution. And why it is called fundamental? Because we say because of the fundamental traits, he or she is doing something. We are talking about these positional traits, not situational traits. In Western culture, they said because of these positional traits. In Eastern culture, they said it is because of situational traits. Well, for example, in education, you know, in Asian countries, in Far East countries, in Oriental countries, there's a great emphasis on academic success. Because of that, many students in China, in many students in America are successful. Many successful students are not from white American or other races here, from, for example, of Chinese American or Oriental American. The culture in which we are raised clearly plays a role in the way we attribute others' behavior. For example, the students in Asian society may perform exceptionally well in school because the culture emphasizes academic success and perseverance. The other parts of relationship between attitude, attribution biases, and culture, it is about the collectivistic orientation and individualistic orientation. In collectivistic orientation, like Far East, like Asian, like Oriental countries, promotes the notion of the interdependence. People with a collectivistic orientation generally see themselves as part of a larger interconnected social network and as responsible to others. They said that the goal of the training, the goal of maturity of a person is to be a good citizen for the country, to gain and to acquire the social skills need to be a good socialized man or woman for his or her society. In collectivistic orientation, collectivistic culture, the final goal of working, of growing, is not about individuation. It's not about to depend independency. You should be dependent and work and live with other people. The major part of human being in that approach to human being is not one person, it is society. Vice versa, in very, very serious individualistic cultures, individualistic orientation like America, emphasizes personal identity and the uniqueness of the individual. They focus more on what sets them apart from others and what makes them special. Everyone to be special for himself or herself. It is one of the attributional biases gained from the culture. Okay, we had a good discussion about the attribution and the influence of attribution on culture and attribution and other parts related to attribution as a major part of social psychology. In the next part, we are talking about social influence and groups. Our learning outcomes are define conformity, explain compliance, and discuss obedience. Social influence is the process by which the actions of an individual or group affect the behavior of others. So, we are talking about influence. We are talking about affect. One in a group, group in one in one, group in group. In some cases, thought social rules influences us so profoundly that we engage in behavior in entirely atypical and damaging ways. We damage everything because of social influence, sometimes, not always. We had three types of social influence: conformity, compliance, and obedience. Conformity, following what others do. Very simple definition of conformity. Following what other people do. And compliance, submitting to direct social pressure. Submitting to direct social pressure. And obedience, following direct orders. This is something different from conformity and obedience. In obedience, you have some orders and you follow the direct orders. In conformity, there is no order. They are thinking and watching and observing other people, what they are doing, and you follow what they do. And in compliance, submit to direct social pressure. Again, in compliance, we don't have any direct order, but we have direct social pressure. Direct pressure is compliance. Conformity, a change in behavior or attitudes brought about by desire to follow the beliefs or standards of other people, comes from subtle, sometimes even unspoken social pressure. In conformity, highly recommended to read the book Originals. Originals by Adam Grant. It is about nonconformist people, people who cannot follow what other people do. They are the major creators of the culture. They are the major creators of everything in life, everything involved. So conformity is a change in behavior or attitudes brought about by a desire to follow the beliefs or standards of other people, come from subtle, sometimes even unspoken social pressure. Solomon Asch experiment says that participants confirmed in about one-third of the trials. Conformity high when people must respond publicly, lower when at least one other person dissents from the group. It is sometimes about the non-conformist people, leaders. You know, leaders are future oriented. And sometimes when you are for future oriented, that you know that what you want in the future, and you know how you don't know how can you gain that future, but you know what exactly what you want in the future, and you begin from the end to the starting point, from the ending point, stopping point to the starting point, and in a reverse process, you know what should you do just now, and you are non-conformist. You do what you don't not want. You don't want to follow the other people thinking, other people beliefs, other people actions, because they are many people, they are population. And at first, you should accept your uniqueness. You should accept your uniqueness, and you should pay cost for your uniqueness. The cost of uniqueness is loneliness. The cost of uniqueness is loneliness. When you accept that, yes, I am unique and I want to create my own desirable life, desirable company, desirable business. At first, you should pay a high cost. You should pay a very, very high cost. Why? Because you will be isolated after sometimes. All the winners stand alone, as Paulo Coelho says. All the winners stand alone. And after that, somebody will be your follower. And after that, after some time, some decades, some years, you will be the major part of other people, but highly recommended not to set your goals for gaining the followers because they are the fake. You should work on yourself also. It is the first comment of Oprah Winfrey. And social roles, the behaviors that are associated with people in given position. We are talking also about conformity. Philip Zimbardo prison study. Please look at the movie in the internet. Look at the video about the Philip Zimbardo prison study, Stanford prison study in 1970s, I think. That it shows that playing major roles, not the real roles, playing fake roles can create a real mindset in yourself. Sometimes it is so hazardous. Sometimes it is so dangerous. Sometimes it is so harmful for yourself and others. Fake it till you make it. Okay, it is fake it. But when you make it, it can be hazardous. Philip Zimbardo, conforming to a social role can have a powerful consequence on the behavior of anyone. Also, I think in 2013, there is a movie about this part, Philip Zimbardo prison study. And you see here, it is easy to think of conformity to in the context of teenagers and desire to fit in, and how our conformity is equal as pervasive in adults. Why? It is so easy to have a conformity. Why? Because everybody says that you are like us. There is no dissonance. There is no difference, and also sometimes there is no difficult, and there is no extra price. There is no extra value. There is no extra privilege for you to be unique in your society for yourself, not about your environment, for yourself. In conformity, there is no chance for self fulfillment. There is no chance for self actualization. There is no chance for self discovery. There is no chance for your self awareness. In conformity, there is nothing for self development, self improvement. The second part is compliance. Behavior that occurs in response to direct social behavior, social pressure. In conformity, you want to do what other, you want to follow what other people do. In compliance, you respond to direct social pressure. Foot in the door technique and door in the face technique. In foot in the door technique, people are more likely to agree to a more important request if they have first agreed to a smaller one. It is foot in the door technique. Give people small requests, and after that, they will be ready for accepting other greater requests. And during the face technique, making a large request, expecting it to be refused, then following with a smaller one, which is the targeted request. It is called that if you expect to be dead, you can accept the fever. It is a proverb in my native language, in Farsi language. The translation it is that um, say people that you will die. After that, they will accept so easily their fever. It is door in the face technique, not foot in the door technique. Foot in the door technique it is about saying very small foot in the door. I mean, my foot is in the door, and look at the, for example, a room or a space, and say little by little, greater request. But in the door in the face, I want to a large request, and after that, you will be satisfied with the smaller request. It is door in the face or foot in the door technique. And that's not all technique. Immediately after an initial offer at an inflated price, you are offered an incentive to clinch the deal. It is That's not all technique. It's about the punishment, and it is about the reward. And not so free samples. You feel the need to reciprocate when given a free sample, so you are more likely to buy the product also based on the normal reciprocity that you can find in Costco, for example. You have many food samples. Yes, free sample. It is not so free samples. You see that it is free sample. Okay, sample, food sample or free sample. But after that, you are engaged in, based on the norm of reciprocity, you are engaged with that product, with that store, and not about the commitment, not about the application, but it's about the having so habitual behaviors in going to the store, in going to use that samples, and after that, it will be one part of your lifestyle. These are the four techniques: foot in the door technique, door in the face technique. That's not all technique, and not so free technique, sample or technique. Why just between these major serious uh, techniques. We want to talk about the IO psychology, because after that we know that we can use this technique in industrial organizational psychology, the branch of psychology focusing on work and job related issues, including worker motivation, satisfaction, safety, and productivity. Companies seeking to sell their product to customers often use the techniques identified by social psychologists for promoting compliance. Because of that, in the matter of compliance, we are talking about the IO psychology. The last part is about obedience, a change in behavior in response to commands of others, direct commands, direct requests, direct orders, people in power or authority figures. Directives, obedience. You should obey them. You cannot escape from obedience. We need only consider actual instances of obedience to authority to witness some frightening real life parallels. Stanley Milgram experiments is a very, very famous experiment in psychology. That results showed that 65% of participants eventually used the highest setting on the shock generator. You can see here, this fearsome looking shocking generator led participant to believe they were administering electric shocks to another person who was connected to the generator by electrodes that were attached to the skin. Participants said they obeyed mostly because they believed the experimenter would be responsible for any potential harm to the learner. At first, they said, yes, I enter you an electric shock because I'm not responsible. The experimenters are responsible. It is not my duty. I am only the agent. I am only in the position of obedience, only the direct orders, only doing and acting and performing based on the direct orders. Because of this graphic demonstration of obedience to authority, the Milgram experiment is one of the most famous and influential studies in social psychology. 65% of participants eventually use the highest setting on the shock generator, 450 volts. 450 volts. Please go to YouTube and see the videos about the Stanley Milgram experiments, and also Philip Zimbardo, Stanford prison experiments. The other part is about prejudice and discrimination. Identify the origins of prejudice, describe how the IAT implicit association test measures prejudice, and assess ways to reduce prejudice and discrimination. What are the stereotypes? We want to know about the stereotypes. Stereotypes is a set of generalized beliefs and expectations about a particular groups and its members, helping categorizing and organizing information. As you know, when you have a stereotype, when you have manners, when you have cliches about the concepts, when you conceptualize something, it helps you to organize the data, the information about that concept, about that matter, and can be negative or positive, but all stereotypes oversimplify the world. It is the problem. It is something like reality distortion done by defense mechanisms. All stereotypes oversimplify the world, and although usually backed by little or no evidence, stereotypes can have harmful consequences. Stereotyping not only leads to over discrimination, but also can cause members of stereotype groups to behave in ways that reflect the stereotype through a phenomenon known as the self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a very, very famous phrase from the field of from the field of social psychology in the other academic and sometimes popular fields like management, like leadership, like business. Everybody knows about self-fulfilling prophecies. Self-fulfilling prophecies are expectations about the occurrence of a future event or behavior that act to increase the likelihood the event or behavior will occur. I do something that approve my prediction about the future. I am the prophecy for my self-fulfillment. I act that I show the increasing likelihood of something in the future. For example, if people think that members of a specific group lack ambition, they may treat them in a way that actually bring about a lack of ambition. It is some, we have a um, disorder in mental disorders, we have a situation so-called induced psychosis. Induced psychosis is when that I live with a psychotic man or woman, with my mother, with my father, with my spouse, with my friend, that he or she is psychotic. And after that, a third party can find some psychotic symptoms in me. Why? Because it is induced to me by my partner, by the person that I am living with him or her. It is induced psychosis. Basically, I don't have any problem in mental disorder as a psychotic disorder. But when I am talking, I am living with another one with a psychotic disorder, after sometimes I will experience, I will have some psychotic symptoms. It is called induced psychosis. Self-fulfilling prophecy is something like induced psychosis, that you show that yes, you cannot do that thing because you assume that he or she doesn't want to do something. It is self-fulfilling prophecy. It is the actions to approve my prophecies about the future. And prejudice is a negative or positive evaluation, a negative or positive evaluation of a particular group and its member. It's a matter of attitude. We will talk about the major differences between prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice is a matter of attitude, matter of mindset, is a matter of mental syntax, is a matter of thoughts, belief system. A negative or positive evaluation of a particular group and its members. So it is from a matter of attitudes. And discrimination, it is behavior. It is about the actions, behavior directed toward individuals on the basis of their membership in a particular group. Remember that prejudice relates to attitudes about a group and its members, whereas discrimination relates to behavior directed to a group and its members. When you think about, about another group, another race, another ethnicity, another community, another nationality, another group of people, specific group of people, when you think in a specific way, it's your prejudice. It's not about your action, only your think. And you talk about your thinking, no action, only attitude. But your behaviors based on that attitude, it's called discrimination. So prejudice cannot be observable easily because it's your mind. But discrimination is completely observable. Why? Because it is the action. The foundations of prejudice is observational learning approaches and social identity theory. We can hear the behavior of parents, other adults, and peers shape children's feelings about members of various groups. Prejudice is learned through imitation and reward and punishment. Especially in religious issues, we have some types of observational learning in creating and in foundations of prejudice. Why? Because in adolescence, you are seeking your identity. It is the crisis of adolescence, identity seeking crisis. And you are looking at the elites around you, at your father, at your mother, at the elites in your society, in your community. Because of that, when you cannot find anything that you can have a pride on him or her, you will have some types of, for example, entering to gangster groups. It is about the identity. It is about the label. It is not about reality or effectiveness or not effectiveness. It is about the identity. Who am I? I want my identity. Okay? In this type part of life, observational learning is very important. And social identity theory says people tend to be ethnocentric. Ethnocentric is about the tribe, about the culture, about the ethnography or ethnicity. Ethnocentric, that yes, everybody is with us is right, other people are wrong. Ethnocentric view the world from their own perspective and judging others in terms of their group members, with us or against us. You are with us or you are against us. We are ethnocentric people. We only think about your ethnicity, our race, our nation. It is social identity theory. What is your identity? My identity is social identity. For example, in this approach, when you ask people with ethnocentric approaches to, for example, prejudice as the fundamental, as the foundation, at the root causes of prejudice, they said, yes, because my ethnicity, I think like this, I think like this. Because my ethnicity is my source of identity. You see here, like father, like son, social learning approaches to stereotyping and prejudice suggest that attitudes and behavior toward members of a minority group are learned through the observation of parents and other individuals. We can see here, like father, like son. An implicit association test, or IAT, allows for measurement of subconscious, not completely unconscious, not completely conscious, talking about subconscious attitudes toward members of a specific group, of which people are not aware and may not want to reveal. It is very important. Because of that, in psychotherapy, we talk about shadow works. Shadow are that parts of your body, of your mind, of your unconsciousness that you don't want to be to see it, to confront with it. You want to deny it. You want to hide it. You want to reject it. You want to suppress it. You want to do anything for it except of accepting, except of reveal it. It is your shadow. In the Jungian psychology, it is called shadow. The results of this test show that almost 90% of test takers have a pro-white implicit bias, and more than two-thirds of non-Arab, non-Muslim volunteers display implicit bias against Arab Muslim. Moreover, more than 80% of heterosexuals display an implicit bias against gay and lesbians. And so you can see the uh, article in the Google Scholar, the uh, abstract of the article in the Google Scholar with the name of Witterbrink and Schwartz. And go to implicit, Harvard EDU, implicit, to take a test if you want to know about it. Okay. And prejudice and discrimination, reducing the strategies. One, increasing contact between the target of stereotyping and holder of the stereotype. Contact is relatively intimate. Two, individuals are of equal status. And three, participants must cooperate with one another. It's reducing the strategy for reducing the prejudice. Work together with different races, with different ethnographies or ethnicities, and making values and norms against prejudice more conspicuous, and providing information about the targets of stereotyping. You can see here white people and black people and Hispanic people, Persian people, Arab people, Muslim people, Jewish people, Christian people. We are all human beings, regardless of our race, regardless of our religion, regardless of nationality. We are all human beings. And we are like organs of a one single body. If you can find a pain in one organ, other parts of the body are not in the comfortable situation. They are responding to the pain of that organ. You can consider it is also in the head of the UN UN building in New York. From my country, it is from Sadi. Sadi is one of the greatest poets in Farsi language that says that all human beings are the organs of one body. All human beings. It's the poet also. And all human beings are from organs, one body. And if there's a pain in one body, and there's a damage, there's a problem in one organ of the body, other organs are not comfortable, are not in an easy way. They respond to the pain of that organ. And at the end of the poem, he says that if we cannot have empathy with other people, if we cannot experience other people uh, pains, because you are not there, you cannot consider yourself as an organ of a humanity as a single body, you are not eligible, you are not qualified to be named, to be titled as human. Also, it is very philosophical, very beautiful poem in Farsi language that it is on the head of the UN building, United Nations building in New York. And positive and negative social behaviors compare and contrast the concepts of liking and loving and explain aggression and pro-social behavior. Are people basically good or bad? Like philosophers and theologians, social psychologists have pondered the basic nature of humanity. It is represented mainly by the violence and cruelty we see throughout the world, or does something special about human nature permit loving, considerate, unselfish, and even noble behavior as well? In close relationship or interpersonal attraction, positive feelings of others, liking and loving. Factors that in attracting or liking are proximity, mere exposure, similarity, and physical attractiveness. In proximity, geographical closeness leads to liking. Two, mere exposure is meant. Repeated exposure to any stimulus usually makes you like it more. If negative initial interaction, dislike will intensify. And similarity increases liking because we assume that people with similar attitudes will evaluate us positively, which promotes our attraction to that person because of the reciprocity of liking effect, a tendency to like those who like us. It is reciprocity of liking effect. It is very obvious. And finally, positive physical attractiveness. All else being equal, physically attractive people are more popular than physically unattractive ones. Beautiful is good for us. Also, it's a popular belief about the attractiveness. And we have a very famous theory about love. We have three famous theory about love in psychology. The first one is this theory, triangular theory. The second one is the theory of Helen Fisher. This theory is by Robert Sternberg, one of the greatest and one of the most famous psychologists all around the world. And also in, I think, 2 years, he was the president of the American Psychological Association. And after that, after Sternberg's, we have Helen Fisher about why we love, why we cheat. And the third theory is about by Barbara Fredrickson, Love 2.0, the supreme emotion. Love 2.0, you can find the book, Love 2.0, the supreme emotion. Psychologist Robert Sternberg makes an even finer differentiation between 7 types of love. He proposes that love consists of 3 major parts: commitment, passion, and intimacy. Commitment or decision, it is the initial thought that one loves someone and the long-term feeling of commitment to maintain love. It is the first major component of love. The second one, it is intimacy components, that talks about the telling secrets, last secrets to another one. You are intimate with him or her. Feeling of closeness and connectedness. It is intimacy. And the third part, it is about physical attractivity and sexual attractivity, passion components, the motivational drives relating to sex, physical closeness, and romance. Based on these three major components in triangle theory, triangle is three parts, with three parts, we can have 7 models of love. In 3 models, we have only one component. If you have only intimacy with another one, it is called liking. If you only have passion about another person, it is infatuation. If you have only commitment or decision, like your some parts, like grandpas and grandmas, it is empty love. If you have intimacy and passion, it is romantic love. Intimacy and passion, but no commitment. If you have intimacy and commitment, it is compassionate love. If you have commitment and passion, it is fatuous love. And if you have all the components, all the elements of love, passion, intimacy, and commitment, it is consummate love. You can see in the picture, okay, liking, companionate love, and empty love, fatuous love, infatuation, and romantic love. Passionate or romantic love is a state of intense absorption of someone that includes intense physiological arousal, psychological interest, and caring for the needs of another one. It is passionate or romantic love. And companionate love, it is the strong affection we have for those with whom our lives are deeply involved. It is companionate love. And the other part is about aggression, the intentional injury of or harm to another person. The goal of the aggression is harming other people. It is also a conclusion of anger, instinct approaches, frustration, aggression approaches, and observational learning approaches to anger. In instinct approaches, we say aggression is the outcome of innate urges. And we can find the phrase catharsis, which was coined, I think, by, at the first time by Freud, Sigmund Freud. And it is about the process of discharging build-up aggressive energy. Little evidence to support the need for catharsis. And in frustration, aggression approaches, we want to the reaction to the thwarting or blocking of goals. It is frustration. And frustration produces anger, which leads to a readiness to act aggressively. Now, aggression, what kinds of stimuli act as an aggressive cues? They can range from the most expressive, such as the presence of weapons, to more subtle cues, such as the mere mention of the name of an individual who behaved violently in the past. What kind of stimuli act as an aggressive cue? You see here, road rage, a result of frustration. Sometimes, according to frustration, aggression approaches frustration is a likely cause. Frustration, aggression says, if you have frustration, you have anger, and after anger, you have two choices, assertiveness and aggression. And if you choose aggression, you want to harm yourself or other people. And harming is in two ways, active aggression and passive aggression. Active aggression is violence, straight and direct, have some direct aggression against others. And passive aggressive people are people that harm you without any violence. For example, we know that gossip is a type of passive aggressive. It is aggressive. It is aggression. Why? Because they harm your personality. They character assassination against your character, against your reputation in your society. But they don't kill you. They don't have any weapon. They don't have any violence against you. Only they have some character assassination in you. And also aggression, observational learning approaches in aggression says social and environmental conditions can teach individual to be aggressive, especially from your parents. Rewards and punishment received by both the individual and models whose behavior is imitated. Research shows some support. And what is pro-social behavior? Pro-social behavior is helping behavior. We are talking about the bright side of human nature. And diffusion of responsibility says that tendency for people to feel that responsibility for acting is shared or diffused among those present. Everybody is engaged with the responsibility. Everybody is responsible for doing something when he or she is present at a situation. It is called diffusion of responsibility between many people, between everybody who is present in a situation. You see, there are four basic steps in deciding to help improve social behavior. At first, noticing a person, event, or situation that may require help. The second step is interpreting the event as one that requires help. Yes, he or she needs help or not. And assuming responsibility for helping. Yes, he or she needs help. I am responsible to help him or her. And finally, deciding on and implementing the form of helping. We are talking about pro-social behavior. And also you see here about altruism. Altruism is something different from pro-social behavior. In altruism, helping behavior that is beneficial is often the only bright side of a natural disaster. The distinction between pro-social behavior and altruism is important. In pro-social behavior, we don't need any type of self-sacrificing components. But in altruism, absolutely, it contains an element of self-sacrifice. And helpers' characteristics are they are self-assured, more sympathetic, more emotional, understanding, and more empathetic than our non-helpers. And what is empathy? Empathy is the personality trait in which someone observing another person experiences the emotions of that person's. And the final part of this chapter is about stress and coping. And a person responds to events that are threatening or challenging is stress. So stress is a reaction. Stress is not outside of you. It's not external. It is inside. It is internal. The person responds, reaction to events that are threatening or challenging. Stress or are circumstances or events that produce threats to our well-being. And both positive and negative events can produce stress. We have a stress, eustress, distress. Distress is negative stress. Eustress is positive stress. Positive stress is the type of stress that produce motivation and produce arousal in yourself for going forward, for overcoming obstacles. The distinction between stressors and stress can be tricky. A stressor like an exam causes stress. Stressors are not the stress. Stress is the physiological and psychological reaction that comes from that exam, from that stress. So the cause of stress is called a stressor. For example, you want to take an exam and you have some physiological, for example, you're in your gut feeling, in your stomach, in your body, over fatigue and other things like this in your body, and hyperarousal sometimes, hyper smoking, hyper eating, no lower eating, lower smoking, sexual dysfunction, and other things. Reaction only to take an exam. It is a stress. The stressor is the exam, and the stress is your response to the exam. You see, even positive events, for example, having a new baby, can produce significant stress, meaningful stress for people to consider an event stressful. They must perceive it as threatening or challenging and must lack all the resources to deal with effectively. If you don't perceive something as threatening, other people say, yes, it is threatening or challenging. If you don't perceive, you don't understand, you should think that, no, it's good. Yes, life is difficult. I know it. It is not challenging for me. It is not threatening for me. Because of that, when you live with we have three stages, the three states of mind in our life. It is doing a state, being a state, and dying a state. Dying a state is the state that you want to work with the word in the position of dying. You see that the value of living is dying. I can be dead. I can die for everything in life. It is not important how important that issue is. It is important that it is my choice. Very, very simple choices. I can be dead. I can lose my life because of life. It is dying state. It is very, very high level of consciousness. And categories of stressors is cataclysmic events, personal stressors, a background stressor or daily hassles. In cataclysmic events, strong stressors that occur suddenly, affecting many people at once, for example, natural disasters. In personal stressors, major life events, such as the death of a family member, that have immediate negative consequences that generally fade with time. After sometimes it will be faded. After sometimes you see that no, stressors are not like something that they were before that time. And major catastrophes or strong personalities may result in PTSD. PTSD, which is the acronym of post-traumatic stress disorder, it is a type of stress disorder, a stress reaction to the situations that you may experience that you or another people is dying. We have three types of PTSD: war-related PTSD, rape-related PTSD, and also disaster-related PTSD. Long-lasting effects that may include re-experiencing the event in vivid flashbacks or dreams, especially in your in your sleep dreams, not your daydreams. And background stress or daily hassles, everyday annoyances that cause minor irritations and may have long-term ill effect if they continue or are compounded by other stressful events. Example, by standing in a long line at a bank and getting stuck in a traffic jam. Daily hassles are the minor irritations of life that we face time and time again. And high cost of stress is continued exposure to stress can result in decline in overall functioning because of constant secretion of stress-related hormones. Especially cortisol is the major stress hormones. It's very useful for your body in the fight or flight situation. But if your body is always in a fight or flight situation, if you are always in a standby situation, it is very harmful for you. Very, very harmful for you. In psychophysiological disorders are the medical conditions that are influenced by an interaction of psychological, emotional, and physical difficulties. My PhD is in the field of health psychology. In health psychology, we are considering and assessing, gathering information, gathering data about the connection between the mind and body, especially in medical physiological problems like asthma, like diabetes, like cancer, like HIV, and other chronic disorders, other chronic situation in your life which leads to changing your lifestyle. For example, in CABG is a very major and heart surgery uh, from your leg somewhere. Some parts of your leg are connected to your heart at the CABG. After that, for example, it is stress is very, very harmful for you as a living body. It has the hazard, it's the danger of death after that. Because of this, for example, in CABG, in diabetes, in asthma, that you should change your lifestyle, your eating behaviors, in many physiological medical problems. You need some changes in your lifestyle. Health psychology talks about those changes that you need to create in your lifestyle. Because of that, we should consider psychophysiological disorders as a part of the your assessment about the thing. In hassles, you see percentage of people experiencing stress, not enough time, near 90%, too many things to do, near 80%, troubling thought about the future, again 80%, too many interruptions, misplacing or losing things, health of a family member, social obligations and concerns about the standards, concern about getting ahead, too many responsibility. All are the hassles, daily hassles that create some uh, different degrees and levels of stress in your life. And in uplifts, at the good events, even in good events, you can experience a stress. Why not? Also, it is not called stress. It is called not called distress. It's called eustress. Two types of stress, but it is the experience of stress in positive way. For example, relating well with a spouse or lover, and relating well with friends, and completing a task and feeling healthy, getting enough sleep, eating out, meeting responsibility, visiting, phoning, or writing someone, spending time with family and a home inside pleasing to you. These are all activities to uplift, to reduce the stress level. You can see, for example, relating well with a spouse or lover, about 80% of people experience releasing of stress when you have a good relationship with the lover or spouse. Or relating well with friends, if you have a good time with your friends, about 70% of people have release stress, have reduced stress. They can use an as a stress reducing strategy uh, with relating with their friends, have a good time with their friends. And the basic and most famous theory about the stress is coined by a scientist by the name of Selye. He says that he talked about the GAS model or GAS model, the General Adaptation Syndrome. A theory developed by Hans Selye that suggests that a person responds to stress or consider three stages: alarm phase and resistance phase and exhaustion phase. Alarm or mobilization phase or stage, resistance phase or stage, and exhaustion phase or stage. You see here, for example, in this figure, you can find you have a stressor as the date of the exam, as the type of exam. Alarm and mobilization, it says that meeting and resisting stressors, and after that, resistance, coping with stress and resistance to stressor, and negative consequences of stress, such as illness, occur when coping is inadequate. You see the picture of Hans Selye here. He says it's not the stress that kills us, it is our reaction to it also that kills us. And there's a very, very interesting interdisciplinary major field in psychology and medicine, so-called psychoneuroimmunology, the combination of psychology, immunology, and neurology, the study of the relationship among psychological factors, the immune system, and the brain. Consequences of stress can be direct physiological effects engaging in behavior harmful to one's health, and indirect health related that you can find it here. These are direct physiological effects, like, for example, elevated blood pressure, decrease in immune system functioning, and increased hormonal activity, and psychophysiological conditions, and harmful behaviors like increased smoking and alcohol use, decreased nutrition, decreased sleep, increased drug use in harmful behavior, self destructive behavior, and indirect health related behavior from stress. We can find decreased compliance with medical advice, increase in delays in seeking medical advice, and decrease in likelihood of seeking medical advice. And in coping with stress, we have three major parts. emotion-focused coping, problem-focused coping, and avoidant coping. In emotion-focused coping, you want to control your reaction to stress. You don't work on your stress, or you work on yourself to regulate your emotions in response to emotion, to a stressor. So it is emotion-focused coping, trying to manage your emotions in the face of stress. In problem-focused coping, you want to work on the source of the stress, not on your reaction or response to stress. In avoidant coping, and it's a very, very fake coping strategy. It works, but it is not. It doesn't work for a long time. Trying to use escape routes such as wishful thinking, drug or alcohol use, or overeating is often ineffective and can make the problem worse. And after sometimes these self-destructive behaviors will be the new sources of your stress. And learned helplessness, uh, phrase coined by Martin E.P. Seligman, the founder of positive psychology, before entering to positive psychology and talking about learned optimism. It talked about learned helplessness. Also in social psychology, it is a very, very famous phrase because you can see in many societies, you can see learned helplessness. They think it is not important what they are doing. The final outcome is defined by other people. It is locus of control, outside locus of external locus of control. A learned conviction that aversive stimuli cannot be controlled, and thus ceasing to try to remedy aversive circumstances. It is very interesting that the concept of learned helplessness is gained from working with dogs, not with human beings. So it is about the mammals in different levels. Resilience, the ability to withstand, overcome, and actually thrive after profound adversity, and social support, a mutual network of caring, interested others. The social and emotional support people provide each other helps in dealing with stress in several ways. And the final part is about the effective coping strategies are turn threat into a challenge. It is very important. Focusing on ways to control it. Two, make a threatening situation less threatening. If situation is uncontrollable, change your appraisal and modify your attitude. Change your goals. The first one is very important. Third, turn threat into a challenge is very important. Turn threat into a challenge and change your goals and modify your physiological reactions. Calm down or exercise, regular daily exercise can reduce your stress and prepare for stress before it happens. It is proactive coping. And in the final picture, in the final slide, you can see that most jobs are stressful. How would good stress coping techniques help you in these situations? I think in this session, we talked about many important issues in your daily life. And you can use the data, the information of this chapter in your daily life as a human being, as a father, as a mother, as a sibling, as a spouse, as a manager, as a leader, because these are very popular issues for all human beings, not only in the 20th or 21st century, in all the history of human being, but very serious, very uh, brilliant in the new ages of humanity, especially after World War II. Thanks for watching this video, and I hope to give you the best information about the stress, about the social psychology, about the prejudice, about the discrimination, love, liking, and other things. Have a good time. Bye.